If you are sick of the chaos and craving those old-school White House days when words carried weight and silence hit harder than any insult, buckle up, because this story takes you straight back to that era, the night Donald Trump swaggered to a podium in front of the entire country and casually mocked Michelle Obama's legacy with that familiar smirk on his face. And Barack Obama sat there, perfectly still, saying nothing, for so long that the room started to think he was going to let it go. He was not going to let it go. He was loading, and when he finally spoke, he did not defend his wife. He used Trump's own words against him, the ones Trump had said on tape, on record, in public, laughing about his own daughter. And by the time the room caught up to what had just happened, Trump was red-faced, speechless, and the applause was already rolling toward the ceiling without anyone deciding to start it. This is exactly how it happened. The Washington Hilton ballroom was lit for something bigger than a panel discussion. Every seat filled, business suits pressed sharp, press badges catching the light, a scatter of red MAGA hats in the back rows like punctuation marks in a sentence nobody had finished writing yet. The American Leadership Forum, live on major networks. Two former presidents sharing the same stage for the first time since Donald Trump returned to the White House. The air had the quality of air in a room where everyone present knows something significant is about to happen and is waiting to find out exactly which kind of significant it is going to be. The moderator stepped to the podium and kept it brief. Good evening. Tonight's conversation is about the future of American leadership. How do we bridge divides, move forward together, and lead with strength in uncertain times? She paused, letting the words settle. Then she gave a quick nod, and Trump was already moving before she finished saying his name. He bounded to the podium with the energy of a man arriving at his own rally, adjusted the mic with a quick practice twist, and launched in without pause. Folks, let me tell you something. We have done more in the last few years than most people thought was even possible. Record low unemployment before the China virus hit, energy independence, tax cuts that put real money back in your pockets, the strongest military this country has ever had. Tremendous, tremendous success. His voice filled the room, the way his voice always fills rooms, rolling and certain, hands chopping the air in the familiar rhythm. Every few sentences he threw in a "believe me" or "nobody has ever seen anything like it," and the applause came right on cue from his corner of the crowd. Not stadium level, but solid enough to keep him moving. He paced slightly behind the podium, feeding off the response, grinning with the easy confidence of someone who believes the room already belongs to him. Then the tone shifted, his eyebrows lifting and his smile tightening into something more deliberate. "Now look," he said, "I am all for unity. We all want that. But let's be honest, some people had 8 long years to get things done. 8 years of beautiful speeches, very eloquent, very classy. And what did we get? A lot of talk, a lot of promises, not much action." He paused, and the polite applause from earlier dissolved before it could become anything more. Heads turned toward Obama, who sat perfectly still, face composed as a man listening to a weather report he has already heard. Trump leaned forward, voice dropping just enough to make it feel targeted rather than broadcast. "I mean, come on. We had a first lady who spent more time writing books and going on talk shows than actually fixing problems here at home. Nice words, sure, but words do not build walls, do not bring jobs back, and do not keep the country safe." The room drew in a quiet collective breath. The name had not been spoken yet, but nobody in the ballroom needed it. The reference was clear, aimed, and landed the way it was intended, like a flat stone skimmed across still water, creating rings that spread before anyone could stop them. A few people in the back exchanged quick glances. A few mouths opened without producing sound. Trump kept going, casual as a man reciting known facts. "And you know what she always said? When they go low, we go high." He let the phrase exist in the air for a beat, then released a short, sharp laugh, the kind that carries the specific message that he does not believe a word of what he just quoted. "High? Really? Maybe that works when you are sitting in a fancy library signing books. But down here in the real world, sometimes you have to go low to win. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. That is leadership. That is results." He smirked and let his eyes move to Obama for the first time since he started speaking. The look said everything his words had not quite said directly. "Your move." The crowd had split. Some of Trump's supporters chuckled nervously. Others sat frozen, waiting to find out whether the other shoe was going to drop. Up at the front, Obama had not moved, had not frowned, had not shifted his weight, had not exchanged a glance with anyone nearby. But if you were watching closely enough, really closely, you would have caught it. His right hand, resting on his knee, fingers curling in just a fraction for one brief second. Not a fist, not anger, just a small, controlled compression, the physical equivalent of a person taking a precise measurement and finding it exactly where they expected it to be. Then the hand relaxed and spread flat again. The cameras probably caught it. Most people in the room room were looking at Trump. Trump was not done. He leaned back into the podium, voice dropping a notch but keeping its edge. Michelle Obama, great speaker, no doubt. Very polished. Very inspiring. But when you look at what actually got done, nothing. Nice speeches, lots of talk about hope and change. But where was the change? Where were the results? She was First Lady for 8 years. That platform could have fixed real problems. Instead, more books, more television appearances, more words. Words are cheap, folks. Action is what matters. The room went dead quiet. Not the polite hush from before. This was heavier and closer. The specific silence of a space from which something has been removed. A few people swallowed. Phones that had been recording stayed up, but nobody moved. The name had been spoken flat out this time, and the blade had been twisted just far enough to be unmistakable. Eyes moved to Obama. He sat exactly as he had for the last several minutes. Back straight, hands light on his knees, breathing even, face like a still pond in the absence of wind. No frown, no tight jaw, no quick glance at an aide, nothing. Just that steady gaze fixed somewhere between the podium and the middle distance. The silence was not passive. It had presence, weight, the quality of a wall that is growing taller with every second it holds, Trump noticed. His eyes moved to Obama again, faster this time, searching for a reaction that was not arriving. The absence of pushback seemed to unsettle him more than any response would have. He cleared his throat, forced a chuckle that did not land cleanly. And you know, he continued, it is not just her. The whole family got the same treatment. Endless praise, endless photo ops. But when push came to shove, what did we really see? More of the same. Talk. Always talk. He paused, waiting. Still nothing from Obama. No shift, no change of expression. I guess when you are that insulated, you do not have to get your hands dirty, Trump said. Must be nice. The words had an edge on them now, pointed at the entire Obama family rather than just at Michelle. A ripple moved through the crowd, soft gasps and a few slow head shakes. But Obama held his position, breathing even, expression unchanged. If anything, his stillness seemed to be doing something to the room that Trump's words were not. The calm pressed back against each jab, making the attacks feel smaller and more exposed by contrast rather than larger and more powerful. Trump lingered at the podium, a beat longer than he needed to, eyes on Obama, almost visibly willing him to bite. When nothing came, he stepped back, gave a short wave to his side of the crowd, and returned to his seat. The applause that followed him was scattered and uncertain, the kind that happens out of habit rather than conviction. The gray-haired former aide in the front row who had been recording the entire time gave a single small shake of his head and leaned toward the reporter seated beside him. His voice was low, barely reaching beyond the two of them. He just crossed the line. That is not politics anymore. That is personal and dangerous. She nodded once and wrote it down. Then, slow and entirely without theater, Barack Obama unfolded from his chair. He stood, buttoned his jacket once, and walked to the podium at the pace of a man going to answer a question he has already answered in his head. The click of his shoes on the stage was the clearest sound in the building. When he reached the microphone, he adjusted it slightly, looked out at the room for a moment, not at Trump, just at the faces, and then began. His voice low and at the register that makes a room lean in without deciding to. It is easy to talk about leadership when the cameras are rolling and the lights are bright. You get the applause, the headlines, the cheers. But real leadership, that happens when nobody is watching, when the decisions are hard, and there is no crowd to perform for. That is when character either shows up or it does not. He let the silence hold for a moment. The air conditioning hummed. Nobody else made a sound. Then he turned his head and looked directly at Trump for the first time since the evening began. Not with anger, not with contempt, with the specific steadiness of someone who has decided exactly what they are about to do and has complete confidence in the preparation behind it. You spent a good part of your time tonight talking about my wife, he said. Still calm, almost conversational. Michelle. You said she was all talk, no action. You mocked her words. So let me ask you something. The tension in the room pulled tighter, the way a rope pulls when weight is added to one end. He paused for exactly the right duration. Why don't you tell Barron who his real mother is? The room did not erupt. It imploded. The sound that came from the crowd was not reaction. It was impact. The collective exhale of a room that has absorbed something it had no preparation for. Hands flew to mouths. People half rose from their chairs before sitting back down. Phones that had been at waist height shot upward, red recording lights suddenly everywhere. The reference landed the way it was intended to land. The comments Trump had made years earlier about his daughter Ivanka, on tape, on record, on nationally broadcast programs he had chosen to appear on. Comments that had made people uncomfortable enough to discuss in whispers for nearly a decade, but never loudly enough to force a genuine reckoning, had just been introduced into this room, in front of these cameras, with this audience, by the man whose wife Trump had just finished mocking by name. Trump's face ran through through its sequence: the confident grin, the failure of the confident grin, the attempt at a laugh that came out wrong, hollow and mechanical, the sound of a system engaging when the fuel has already run out. His eyes went wide, then narrowed. His mouth opened, then closed. The man who had been commanding the room for the past 20 minutes was sitting in a chair looking for the response, and not finding it at the speed he needed it. "That is a low blow," he finally managed, pointing across the stage, voice pitched higher than its usual register. "That is hitting below the belt. You are talking about my family now. Unbelievable." Obama did not step back. He did not raise his voice. He met Trump's eyes and spoke directly over the outburst at the same measured pace he had been maintaining since he stood up. "I am not talking about your family," he said. "I am talking about your words, the exact words you said yourself, on tape, in interviews, in public forums you chose to participate in. I am simply using them, that is all." A small, almost sad smile touched the corners of his mouth. Truth does not insult, it reveals. Scattered applause began in the middle rows, tentative, then building, then undeniable as more hands joined, not wild cheering, recognition. The specific sound of a room that has just witnessed precision and is acknowledging it. Trump's face had moved steadily deeper into red. He looked around, looking for the moment when his support would come surging back to him, but the applause kept growing. He sat back hard into his chair, arms crossed, jaw working. Obama gave the crowd one quiet nod, not directed at Trump, and returned to his seat. The applause followed him all the way back. Trump was out of his chair again before the sound had fully settled. The seat scraped loud and sharp against the floor. He grabbed the edge of the podium with both hands, knuckles white, and leaned so far forward the microphone nearly touched his mouth. "You think you can drag my family into this?" His voice had lost its earlier construction entirely. All the polish, the cadence, the practiced confidence, gone. What was left was raw and jagged. "You do not get to talk about my kids. You are not fit to say their names. That is disgusting, Barack." Disgusting. The room froze with the specific quality of a space that has decided it is watching a meltdown and is not sure whether to intervene or simply document it. A few of Trump's supporters started to clap, but the sound was thin and unsure. The moderator half rose from her seat, hands up, but nobody was listening to her. Obama sat for one beat longer. Then he rose again, unhurried, and walked back to the podium for the second time. He adjusted the microphone. He looked at Trump with the expression of someone who is not angry and is not performing calm. He is simply calm. "I am not dragging anyone," he said quietly. "I am repeating what you said publicly, on the record. Back in 2006, on the Howard Stern show, you were asked about your daughter." He paused for exactly one beat. "If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her." Your exact words. You said it again in other interviews. You laughed about it. So let us not pretend this is a surprise. This is yours. A shiver moved through the crowd visibly, the kind that happens when something that has existed only in private conversation is finally spoken aloud in a room with cameras and witnesses and nowhere to hide. Obama turned his head slightly toward the front row. The former aide who had been recording was still there, phone in hand, screen lit. Obama spoke to him directly, his voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "You were there," he said, during the 2016 campaign. "You were in the room for some of those briefings, some of those late-night calls. You heard the comments when they came up. Do you want to tell everyone what you witnessed, or should we let the recordings speak for themselves?" The aide looked up. He held Obama's gaze for a long second. Then he nodded once, firm, public, without hesitation. He said it multiple times, the aide confirmed, his voice carrying clearly to the nearest microphones. It was not a one-off. We all knew it crossed lines even then. Nobody said anything because nobody wanted to be the one who said anything. But we all knew. Trump's palm came down on the table, hard enough to echo. "A stupid joke," he barked, voice cracking midway through the sentence. "Everybody knows I was kidding. You people twist everything." Obama did not blink. He leaned toward the microphone by a fraction and let the question arrive in the room at the same quiet register everything else had arrived in. "A joke about your own daughter?" he asked. "What do you call that, then? Humor, or something else?" The room erupted, not polite applause this time. Real rolling waves of it mixed with gasps and sharp exhales, and a few outright sounds of shock from people who had been trying to stay composed. Hands came together hard. People stood without deciding to stand. The sound built fast and rolled through every section of the ballroom, drowning out Trump's ongoing protest. His aide was whispering urgently into an earpiece. The moderator tried to speak, her voice lost entirely in the noise. Obama stepped back from the podium, one quiet nod to the crowd, then back to his seat. The applause did not stop immediately. It rolled on strong and steady, the sound of a room that has watched something settle into place and cannot quite bring itself to let the moment go. Trump surged forward again. He was practically at the podium, voice cracking into a near shout, face a deep red under the studio lighting. "This is ridiculous," he bellowed. "You come up here with your fancy words, acting like you are above everything. But you just attacked my family, my daughter, my kids. That is not leadership. That is disgraceful." The moderator stepped up, hands raised. "Gentlemen, please, we are here to discuss leadership, not to." Trump waved her away with a sharp gesture. "I am not done. He thinks he can lecture me after everything." His words started running over each other, the usual rhythm that projects control collapsing into something that sounded like the opposite. Obama waited until the outburst reached its peak and began the natural descent that outbursts always take when nothing is feeding them. Then he rose one more time, walked to the podium without hurry, adjusted the microphone back to his height. The room quieted immediately, the way rooms quiet when they understand which voice they want to hear. Obama looked at Trump. His tone was almost gentle, the way a person's tone is gentle when they are making the last point and they want it to land cleanly rather than land hard. "You said something a few minutes ago," he began. "You said, and I am quoting directly, I would never bring someone's family into politics. Never." He let the quote stand for one beat. "So I have one question. If family is genuinely off limits, why did you bring up my wife by name tonight? Why did you twist her words? Why make it personal from the very beginning? You established the rule and broke it yourself in the same speech." The trap closed. Trump's mouth opened, and for the first time all evening, the quick comeback was simply not there. His eyes moved left, then right, the way eyes move when they are searching for an exit that the words have already blocked. The silence that followed was not the charged silence of anticipation. It was the specific silence of someone who has been closed inside their own argument and has just understood that the walls are made of their own sentences. Obama did not press further. He leaned in, just slightly, and delivered the final line in the quiet register he had been using all night, the one that had cut through every moment of noise without ever once competing with it. "Real leadership does not require shouting," he said. "It does not need the last word or the personal attack to feel powerful. It just needs to stand firm when the attacks come. That is it. Stand firm." He stepped back from the podium, gave the crowd one quiet nod, and walked back to his seat with the same unhurried steps he had used to walk away from it. The applause started slow this time, the way it starts when people are not performing enthusiasm, but feeling something they did not entirely anticipate feeling. It spread from the front rows, outward and backward through every section of the ballroom, gathering volume as it went, eventually becoming something steady and full and real. People rose as it traveled, not all at once, not in a single orchestrated wave, but gradually, organically, the way standing ovations happen when they are genuine rather than cued. Trump sat in his chair with his arms crossed and his hands trembling, just enough for the people closest to him to see it. His face was blank now. The grin was gone, the scowl was gone, the performance of total command was gone. What was left was just a man in a suit under bright lights, sitting very still while the room gave its verdict around him. Obama stood last, shook a few hands on his way to the exit, smiled quietly at the organizers, and walked through the side door without looking back. The hallway lights caught him for a moment, one man leaving a storm behind him and arriving in the calm on the other side of it without a single trace of the storm on him. Back in the ballroom, Trump remained in his seat as the crowd began to file out. He did not move. He sat looking at the empty podium with the echo of his own words still in the air and the knowledge, clear and unavoidable now, that the applause had not been for him. The quiet man had walked away with everything that mattered. He had not shouted once. He had not needed to. If you made it all the way through that and felt the moment when the room shifted and you could not quite breathe for a second, then you already know what this channel is built for. That is not just storytelling. That is history laid bare without the spin, without the hype, without the safe version that leaves out the part that actually matters. Every tense silence, every precision strike, every moment when the air got so thick you could feel it through a screen. We do not dress it up. We do not dilute it. We find the moments where real power revealed itself, and we put you inside them. If you want more of this, subscribe right now and turn on notifications, because the next one is already coming, and it does not wait for anyone to get comfortable first. See you there.